Okay.
I didn't use my inversion table last night.
Uh-huh.
I'm regretting that this morning.
Yeah. Alright, man, you can go face down. Cool. So, welcome back. Tim and I have been working on going over the anatomy of his shoulder, neck, rib cage, sternum, clavicle, all this stuff up here, and just going through and locating restriction and lack of motion and injury, tightness, compensation, structural anomalies, all that kind of stuff. And we're seeing how it all ties together into the spine, particularly the spine and the rib cage.
Very much so.
You know what I mean? So we're kind of palpating along the outer portion of the erectors, all the meaty stuff up through here, and then the deep intercostal muscles, serratus muscles, you know, little compression in there, into that tissue that's kind of like all the stuff underneath the scapula right here, you know, okay. One more. Good job.
Oh. Something's under there.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and we're watching how the body's been changing over time. We're applying corrective impulses or influences to tissues and structures in a comprehensive manner. And then the body responds to that. And especially if we're doing care routinely, the body's going to be changing a lot over time in many different ways, and we kind of just have to pay attention to what the body's doing. Holy crap, this is so different.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Right?
You can like feel my ribs through the.
It's so cool. If you haven't watched the other videos, or I don't know who's going to watch this other than me, basically. So, but Tim has had a pretty deep injury throughout this section of his like lower thoracic, upper lumbar junction right here, and you can still feel some ropiness, you know, but it's like nothing compared to what it was.
Yeah. The ropiness is way toned down.
Oh yeah. Do a little compression with my elbow into that spot again. Just kind of broad contact, broad deep contact. You know, and again, we're not just compressing onto the ribs, we're compressing into tissue restrictions. And it just so happens that the rib cage is intrinsically involved or connected to tissue. You know what I mean? So we'll see sometimes little spinal movements, but you don't term those adjustments, they're just mobilizations of joint that occur from addressing tissue in a deep manner.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh, what was that?
Yeah. Trap, rhomboids,
There's a
invader,
lot of unhappy stuff in there.
serratus post.
I thought that was lower.
Yeah, I think there's two serratus muscles on the on the backside.
Gotcha.
Posterior. And then there's the serratus anterior, which is like on the
Yeah, wraps around the punching
yeah,
muscles.
Exactly. So again, I'm kind of using my knuckles, two knuckles in one spot, or you can use a thumb and a knuckle, or a palm and a thumb. Just a palm with some friction, deep compression. We did the broad side of the ulna. You know, you can apply the broad side of the ulna, and then I kind of leverage myself.
Yeah, rock with it.
And you see how like I've got a little bit of the point going on in there, but like, you know, depending on how sensitive people are, you can just use the flat edge. You know, the more broad your contact, the less sharp the sensation. You know, this is kind of a come to, or a go-to, not a come to, a go-to therapy, just, you know, as you're tying everything back into, you know, because the erectors are just like, and the spine are this big, deep, dense thing, you know what I mean? So we can be doing all this peripheral work, but if we're not kind of tying it into the spine, we're not really going to be seeing that like repatterning.
The good changes.
The good, lasting changes, yeah, exactly. So chiropractic is obviously, you know, intrinsically connected to our care. Tim sees Reggie.
Oh man.
SI joint right here. Yeah, I mean, this thing was just like so big.
It was like 2.5 inches raised.
Yeah, it was huge.
It's not even exaggeration.
Right. You know, and some people might say, well, do you worry about breaking a rib?
Not really.
And I say, no, I don't. Because if I were just compressing if I were compressing something that didn't have that deep tightness, then I would probably run the risk of injuring someone. But, you know, and obviously you don't want to go overboard, but you want to be direct. You want to press down until you're making that direct contact. And if you're doing that into a tissue restriction, like I've injured very, very few people, you know, like little tweaky injuries from compression, like 2, I think, in my total career. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Whatever.
I've never thought you were gonna break my ribs. It always seems more like the ribs are.
Yeah.
It's not like the ribs themselves are bending.
You can feel that I'm addressing the tissue.
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
Yeah, exactly. So.
It's not like CPR.
Yeah, and always, I mean, you can kind of, before you start like applying deep pressure, you want to be doing like assessment, just like broad, deep loosening, just to kind of see what people have going on. If they're like acute, obviously that's a different story. But even still, being direct is good. This is something, this type of feel of like how to address someone develops over time, you know what I mean? But starting broad, starting gentle, but being specific, making sure that you're being specific even when you're being light or heavy. So we're just kind of palpating all these unique tissue anomalies and restrictions that Tim has going on. Nice one.
Yeah, whatever's in my rhomboids is
Yeah,
nuts.
so this thing is new.
Yeah, that's never been there before.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, like this thing changing so much, you know what I mean, is you're going to see that everything around the body have to respond to this thing changing. You know what I mean? Okay, and even that SI joint's moving pretty well.
Yeah, I've been noticing that, you know, kind of sort of things where it's like, oh, I should be squatting, you know, kind of bending my knees and hips more than my back. Been doing that more, but even, you know, it's not like there's any weakness in my low back really.
Right,
It'll get tired, but
yeah,
it's so much better.
You know, so kind of palms facing outwards,
Oh my god.
deep compression and friction. You know, just kind of coming up and down the rib cage and the spine. And knuckle into the
That's QL, right?
QL, top of the QL right here. Middle of the QL.
Are you right above my iliac crest?
Not quite.
Okay. It's hard to tell how close you are to my pelvis. There's a lot of pain type feeling. Oh, that's making it difficult to tell.
Okay, QL. correctly. Transverse process, and then the spinous process is here. You can kind of get in that meaty stuff right in the middle there.
Pushing it into the spine.
Yeah, pushing against the spine.
Yeah.
And then SI joint.
That's not nearly as guarded as it was. Ow,
Yeah.
it just hurts.
Multifidus muscle. Okay, so we're feeling the nature of the tissue is really dense. When you have healthy tissue, you're not going to see that ropiness or that denseness. And yeah.
Even that's less ropey, but dense is a good way to put it.
Dense is, that's really what we're feeling for, is just that tissue denseness. You'll see kind of that tightness of the joint structures as well. You know what I mean? They can still move, but there's just a tightness around them. That's what we're trying to get rid of. And so we won't have enough time today, but continuing to just look at the SI joint right here, the sacrum, and then all the attachment points of the glutes, piriformis, deep joint capsule here.
My joint capsule is guarded more than anything.
This thing is so loose compared to what it used to be like.
It is, but I can still tell it's tense in.
Yeah, exactly. Glute min at like 1 o'clock, glute med at 2 o'clock, piriformis at 3 o'clock, glute max kind of at 4 o'clock, and then the deep rotators, way deep in there at 5 or whatever.
Yeah, below the greater trochanter.
Yep, and then 6 would be, I guess, like 5:30.
IT band, TFL.
6 would be the femur, the IT band, and then the joint capsule.
Oh, from that side, it's way better.
Yeah, the joint capsule, and then the IT band here, the TFL at 11. Right, that's a little guarded. And obviously we could go all the way around into the quads and hip flexors here. Let the TFL and the vastus lateralis kind of come right here all the way down to the knee. So we could spend a lot of time just repetitions of addressing all these spots. The more times we make good contact, the more of a change we're going to see. Tim's been working with me for
like 3 years.
3 years. That's a long time. And we've seen some pretty dynamic results. And so Tim understands that the body responds to what influences it regularly. If it's negative things like compensation and injury, repetitive postures, stressors. If these are the only things that affect our body's going to move in a negative direction. But if we affect our body in a positive, corrective manner, intentionally locating and addressing these issues, restrictions, injuries, compensation, imbalance, lack of function, all these different things, the body's going to move away from compensation and towards balance and integrity. And that's just the right thing to be doing all the time. We take care of the things that we value, like our pets and our lawns and our teeth, you know what I mean? All these things get our care regularly, but our body, because it involves a personal awareness, and it's not very common information. People just kind of do what they want. They do what feels good, and that just isn't the right answer.
And teeth is a great example or a great analogy. The only difference is it takes 3 minutes to brush your teeth.
Yeah.
A couple times a day versus potentially working out an hour every day, or
coming to see a chiropractor,
Yeah.
coming to see a therapist for half an hour.
just find what works.
Yeah, and so the other thing about teeth is that if you didn't brush your teeth for a week, you would know, right?
Oh yeah.
And if you didn't go without care for a month, you might not feel any symptoms. Symptoms develop over long periods of time. So it really does take someone understanding the concept of whatever affects your body most is the direction it goes. People that get it are orthodontic dentists, bodybuilders. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
So it's a good thing to be taught and to learn and practice and to share with other people. That might be why we're doing this video. So. All right, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you.